how to set things up to vent in a way that works for both of you. And when I'm going through the different types of conversations and teaching couples how to have them well, I usually just say, and then there's problem solving and move on to the next one. And I'm currently coaching this fabulous couple. They are both so educated, so competent, so respected in their professional circumstances. And when we started working together, there was a lot of disconnection between them that is really resolved, and they have a beautiful way of communicating with one another that's really satisfying for both of them. And the man in this couple, who is a total go-getter, action taker, who's had a lot of success from being that way, came back to me after one of our sessions and said, "How do you suggest we do problem solving? Like, what's the key to successful problem solving?" And interestingly, I haven't been asked that question before, but I think it's such a great question. So I answered him, but I also thought all of you listening might like to hear how Rod and I set up problem-solving conversations so that they're really successful.
The first thing is both of you knowing and agreeing that you're in a problem-solving conversation.
Yeah, although for things that are really at least emotionally complicated, usually you're going to want to have a vulnerable communication first. And once you're on the same page, you both feel seen and heard on that topic, then you can deliberately transition into having a problem-solving conversation. Other times, we might just start with that.
Well, it's easiest when the problem, let's say it's a problem in my work environment. And so you may not even know the people involved, and I'm giving you the information about what the situation is, and then we can kind of sit down together and look at the facts and talk about your thoughts and my thoughts about it. That's easier than when the problem is at home or between the two of us or something like that.
Because we each have our own experiences, and so we're not going to necessarily right off the bat be on the same page. And so in that scenario, it's super important to have a vulnerable conversation where we get to emotionally align and at least be clear what are the different variables that are going to need attention. Once all of that is set up, I feel like it would be helpful to have a specific example, but let's just say that once everything is set up, then what are the elements as you see it that contribute to a problem-solving conversation being successful, which often means being efficient, not that it has to be quick, but there's no landmines or undesired detours where suddenly we're negotiating all kinds of emotional stuff. We can just stay focused on problem solving.
Right. So let's say that the problem is that the garbage in the kitchen needs to be taken out and put in the bin. But from my point of view, I feel like I do it all the time, and I want help with it sometimes or whatever. I have a little bit of charge about it, and you have charge about if it gets smelly or it doesn't get smelly or whatever, and to you it means that I don't love you if I don't take it out. Everybody can have different baggage around it. It's not really only about the garbage and what happens to it. So getting all that stuff out on the table first makes it easier to then have a conversation just about, well, and what are we going to actually do about making sure this task happens?
Yeah, although I would adjust something. Yes, we can get everything out on the table, and then we need to give attention to the emotional elements first. And really only once all of that has happened are we even in a position to actually problem solve on the practical element. Because in some ways I could say we've already addressed the other elements. So now we're left with just practical, logistical elements. Who's going to pick them up when, how are we going to get the trash out on Tuesdays when you work late?
And the truth is that doing the emotional processing of me really hearing your point of view and you really hearing my point of view and fleshing that out so we both understand each other's relationship to the thing can be the bigger issue. The practical logistical discussion can be really simple once that other stuff has actually happened. Yeah,
and the way that I would put it is, if you feel frustrated, if you feel like there's a lot of friction and resistance, then there's probably something that needs attention before you actually are in a problem-solving conversation, because that should feel fairly well lubricated. You're going to use both of your intelligence and information about the situation, clear on what the goal is, and it's just a question of how you're going to go from where you are to that goal being met.